Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this weekly Ag Weather Update brought to you by Ag Carolina Farm Credit. Let's get started here by taking a look at the bigger picture of what's going on right now. You see, when you look across most of North America, there is a battleground, and it is right in through here. The Corn Belt will be dealing with a stationary boundary and multiple shortwaves bringing a lot of heavy rain into this part of the country. Now, if you are south of that, if we're down here in the southeast, a dominant ridge will be the name of the game for the next maybe 7 to 10 plus days. And we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. But that means basically a lot of summer weather for this region that I just circled right here. We are going to be watching the remnants of Hurricane Rosa coming here out of the Baja, kind of coming up into the desert southwest, bringing in some flooding there. But look at this map over here on the left, over on the right, that shows you precipitation anomalies through the next 7 days. And what do we see? We see that most of the heaviest rainfall is outside of the southeast. It's outside of the Carolinas. We got to talk about what that means, because as that big ridge gets set up and we keep having these features coming in off the west coast, reinforcing the deeper trough that's sitting here over Canada, well, that could lead to a long sustained time period of drier than average weather and certainly warmer than average weather for the Carolinas. So that's kind of our quick overview of what we're going to talk about. Let's begin here with looking at what September's given us so far. Now, when you look back over the whole month, let's talk about temperatures first. We have seen warmer than average conditions across much of the southeast. In fact, the only regions that have been cooler than average have been parts of Texas, Oklahoma, where we've had multiple tropical systems come through, and then the colder that's been sitting in Canada finally invading parts of the Northwest. But it's been the precipitation that has been the major story for the month of September. We've got 4 areas of flooding. So if we just want to put Florence in perspective, well, here's Florence. Florence most certainly caused major catastrophic flooding. More than likely, this will be one of our most expensive natural disasters on record. But before that, don't forget, Gordon did this. We had multiple systems coming into Texas from both angles, dumping a lot of rain there in Texas, Oklahoma. And for all those folks that grow corn and soybeans in North Carolina, don't forget, this region up here has been exceptionally wet, sitting on this stationary boundary in parts of Iowa, Wisconsin, southern Minnesota, and northern Illinois. So we just need to see what September gave us before we move into this forecast. Well, here's how things are shaping up early in the week. And the major feature I want you to be focusing on is this huge area of higher atmospheric pressure. It's sitting here, and the flow around it will be feeding into more rain here in the Corn Belt. California, big low off the coast, finally bring in some precipitation there, and Rosa floods out the desert southwest. But it's this ridge right here that will be the dominant feature in the flow. So even though we're flanked by quite a bit of tropical activity, Leslie, not a threat. Sergio, and of course this system way over here west of Hawaii, not a threat right now. But I'll just let you know something. As this system moves on off to the north, it could eventually change the flow of the atmosphere to finally bring in a bit of a breakdown in the pattern we're dealing with. But that ridge, it's this ridge right here and the flow around it that we've got to talk about and make a lot of sense of. So over the last 3 days, what have we seen? Well, we have seen across parts of the Carolinas some normal diurnal convection kind of coming in here off the coast. We also did, of course, bring in a front that kind of swept through there at the end of the week last week that brought in those chances of showers and thunderstorms. But if you take a look at this forecast, this is looking at over the next 60 hours. Look at what that ridge does. It primarily keeps any sort of thunderstorm activity here along the coast. And overall, we spend the first 3 days of this week relatively dry. All the action will be focused around that ridge. So we're talking about up here in the Corn Belt, or where Rosa comes in here out west. It's going to be around that ridge. It's just going to dominate right here that things are going to be wet. So that's good. We need this drier weather. We need this warmer weather, because if we don't have that, boy, that just makes the flood fight so much harder. So to understand that, let's take a look at the upper level flow pattern. I'm going to give you snapshots here of the jet stream, because it's important to see how dominant this ridge is. So starting off Monday, getting through Thursday, so this is midweek, and then getting all the way to next Saturday morning, I just see the same feature. Big, giant ridge, and it is a monster. Okay, we are seeing some of the highest anomalous heights in that ridge that I've seen in a long time. Now, we should be thankful that it's here now and it wasn't here back in parts of June, July, and August because we'd have massive drought. But we need that ridge in place now just to keep things warm and to keep things drying out. Now, if you're in the northern part of the United States or out west, we got a trough, and this trough is keeping things very cold. In fact, they are even going to see some snow in the northern part of the Corn Belt. But look at this. This is now the following week, so this is week 2. Ridge still sitting here just off the coast of the Carolinas, deep trough plunging into the Four Corners states. That's Monday. This is next Thursday, so we're now past 10 days out in the forecast. See the ridge still sitting there? It may be 2 full weeks before we have enough of a difference in the flow of the jet stream out here in the western United States to finally push this deeper trough on through. But I'll tell you something, we're so far out in the forecast that it's hard to see if this is actually going to happen, but that might possibly displace that ridge finally off the East Coast. So October is certainly going to start off warm and thankfully dry. Now, let me teach you some neat stuff here about the flow of the atmosphere. Here's one of the circulations we'll be talking about this winter. It's called the Madden-Julian Oscillation, and it's a tropical feature, but it affects the position of that trough ridge system we're talking about. Now, the Madden-Julian Oscillation, if it stays in the null phase, it's not too much of an indicator of anything. But what we see in the forecast is that over the next few days, it goes out here into phase 8, and then moves over into phase 1. That's the forecast here. So phase 8, phase 1. Now, what does that mean? Well, look over here. Normally, September, October, November, that brings in that ridge feature here for phase 1 and also in phase 8 with colder weather either out west or in the northern plains. So we're seeing some consistency here between the tropics and the mid-latitude part of the flow of our atmosphere. So that's one thing. Another thing I will be teaching you about as we go forward is watching these certain oscillations. One of them is called the Pacific North American pattern. Now, what is it? Well, when the Pacific North American pattern is positive, we tend to have a huge ridge out west plunging into a trough out east, and that is a very stormy fall, winter, and spring. Well, we don't have that right now. What do we have? We are forecasting for the start of the month of October for the East Pacific Oscillation to stay below average, which is right in through here. And in that case, we tend to feature a trough out here and a broader ridge. And you just saw that. So we're seeing these connections kind of help us understand what's going on. And it looks as though that negative P&A pattern hangs on, at least as we get into the second full week of the month of October. So that's important. That is a dominant ridge feature keeping things warmer and drier than average. And here's where it all comes together. I got day 1 through 5, day 5 through 10. Looks like it snuck off the edge here. This is day 10 to 15 over here. And what do we see? The battlegrounds up in the Corn Belt. That's where the mark is between the cold air and the warm air. That ridge, 5 to 10 to maybe 15 degrees warmer than average as we move throughout the next 2 weeks there over the southeast. So we need that. Now, what about precipitation? Well, let's animate it out for you here. We're going to use the operational European model. Now, what do we see? I'm going to step back here. Let's get through the week. You can see that overall things, if you just keep your eye on that and along the southeast part of the United States, things are relatively dry. We may squeeze a cold front through here toward the end of the week, but I just don't see any major organized precipitation systems coming through to kind of really cause problems. If I say anything about what's going on in the Carolinas, we're talking about diurnal convection, hit or miss showers and thunderstorms on the heat of the day, and potentially some onshore flow bringing in some moisture there. So if we put all that together, take a look at this. On the left, I have the operational European model, and on the right, I have the operational US model. What do they both show? Right in through here, a dry pattern. Now, it doesn't mean there's no precipitation. You can clearly see it's got some hit or miss showers and storms, but all the action rides the periphery of that ridge. We call this ring of fire. If it was midsummer, goes right there in the Corn Belt, not here across the southeast. So that's why when we look at it kind of all put together through the next 7 days, we carry the dry bias in the long-range European model here across the Carolinas, and we desperately need this. So this is good news moving forward in our forecast after an incredibly wet last few weeks, primarily driven by Hurricane Florence. And just to make you, to kind of remind you what's on the doorstep, I just want to show you we are expecting snow in the mountains and in the northern plains. So just so you know, winter is close by, but until we break down that boundary, which is right there, it is going to be hot across the southeast. So with that, I'm going to go and wrap up this forecast video. We at Ag Carolina, thank you for watching. Hope you look forward to our next update coming out next week. Thank you.